Right. Hi, I'm Marcus and I play the shakuhachi. In my introductory series to the shakuhachi, I made a few videos on suitable instruments for beginners, but I thought it might be interesting for you to see as well what the instruments are that I am actually using in my daily practice and for performing. So this is what I'm going to do in this video. Let me start by saying that many professional shakuhachi players have many flutes, and there are also shakuhachi players who only have very few flutes. The reason for having many instruments is that you can choose an instrument for a particular piece or for a particular situation, and if you have fewer instruments, you get to know the instruments that you have better than if you have many instruments. And I don't think personally there is a right way or a wrong way. I just happen to fall into the camp where I only have very few flutes. The first instrument that I'm going to show you is the first shakuhachi that I ever got, and it is this instrument here. As you can see, this is a bamboo instrument, and I was fortunate enough to be able to get a bamboo instrument immediately when I started, or even before I started playing. I probably could produce 1 or 2 notes on the instrument before I actually bought it. But I'm not really playing this instrument very much anymore, unfortunately for the instrument, unfortunately for me too. But I just find it very difficult to let go of this because this is my very first flute, and I think I'll just keep it. As you can see, it's nicely made. It has a very nice root end. The reason I'm not playing this so much anymore is that for certain things that I'm playing a lot, playing deep tsumeri notes and playing chiru patterns and playing in the 3rd octave on occasion is a bit difficult on this particular flute. But it served me very well for the first, I think, about 4 years that I played. So, as I say, I don't think I can let go of this instrument, and it is still a very nice backup. I mean, who knows? Shakuhachi crack, and my main shakuhachi might crack someday, and then I will be very glad to still have this instrument. Let's just continue in chronological order. So this is the second shakuhachi that I got. This is a 2.4 shakuhachi, so this is 2 shaku 4 sun long. The standard shakuhachi is tuned to a Western D, as you may know. The 2.4 shakuhachi are tuned to a Western A, so they are quite a bit lower. As you can see, this is not made of marake bamboo, but this is actually tiger bamboo. Marake, the bamboo that is usually used for shakuhachi, is quite expensive, and it's very difficult for makers to find good pieces of marake, so this already drives the price of a good shakuhachi. So there are certain other types of bamboo that you can use to make usable shakuhachi as well, and this tiger bamboo, this very dark bamboo, is one of these options as well. As you can see, the bamboo is comparatively thin, so if you compare this to a marake instrument, this flute here, even though I'm not really using it very much anymore either, I'm still keeping because it is very useful to play with the taiko drums. You may know that I also play taiko with the Mugenkyo taiko drummers in Scotland. And the good thing about this instrument is that it doesn't have a root end, but it is just cut off. And the material, the wall, is quite thin. So what I'm doing is that I clip on a mic here at the bottom and actually insert the mic into the flute. This is so far the only trick I found to be able to play together with taiko, and in particular if you have metal percussion on stage as well. This just is very dominant in the microphones that you have on stage. So this is why I'm putting the microphone inside. This shields the microphone very well. Of course, you have to be very careful not damaging the material, so I use a lot of padding and so on. And so far this has worked really well. But this is the main reason that I'm keeping this instrument. And since I'm amplifying the sound that comes from this flute anyway, it's no problem that the flute itself is actually very quiet. Let's continue with my main shakuhachi. This is a 1.8, so a standard size shakuhachi. This is the main instrument that I'm using, and in the introductory videos when I'm demonstrating something, this is also the instrument that I mainly use. This is a very nice flute. The maker is Miura Ryuho. He is a very well-known maker, in particular for players of the KSK, so players of my lineage. The big advantage is that he is a kind of a perfectionist, so his instruments are of very high quality. Plus, and this is just as important, he makes the instruments in such a way that they are very well suited to playing KSK repertoire, in particular playing the KSK Honkyoku, so the classical shakuhachi repertoire. Things that you have on this flute is, for example, this little notch here on the lowest hole, which makes it a bit easier to play deep tsumeri pitches. And it's also tuned in a way that the tsu is actually a bit flat. Again, this makes it a bit easier to play tsumeri. And overall, it's just comparatively easy to play all the different techniques that we are using for the KSK repertoire. You may notice that compared to other shakuhachi, the root ends are actually cut off. If I again compare this with my first shakuhachi, you can see that here the root ends are still on, whereas here the maker shaved them off. As you can see by the coloring, the bamboo stalk probably already was dying or was dead when it was harvested. And I'm just assuming that the roots just didn't look very nice. They don't influence the sound anyway. So this is a very nice instrument. This is my main shakuhachi, 1.8. The next instrument is this one here. This is a 2.4. The maker also is Miura Ryoho. The main noticeable thing about this flute is that the bamboo actually is very heavy, so the walls are very thick. And I actually find that the sound quality of this flute is a bit different than on the other flutes as well. I'm not really sure if the reason actually is the nature of the bamboo itself, of the wall, or if it is just something that the maker did when he was making the flute. Unfortunately, I don't have access to many shakuhachi, in particular not to professional grade shakuhachi as these are. This is something that you really only get in Japan, where you have fantastic shakuhachi shops and where you can just try a few shakuhachi, or if you are ever at a summer school for the European Shakuhachi Society, for example, sometimes there is a maker there and you can try out some shakuhachi. So this is always really very useful to do. But unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I live in Europe. There's nothing unfortunate about that. But I live in Europe, so access to different shakuhachi is very limited. So this means I can't really compare this very well to other instruments. But I really like this instrument. It has a very strong tone, and yeah, it's just great. Then the last of my shakuhachi, can you believe it? This already is almost the end of the video, is this one here. This is a 2.7 flute, also by Mr. Miura. And the material here is a bit thinner, so the weight of this 2.7 flute is about the same as the weight of this 2.4 flute. So even though the 2.7 flute is quite a bit longer, it has about the same weight. So this flute is tuned in D, the 2.7 is tuned in D, 2.4 is tuned in A, and the standard size shakuhachi is tuned in D. So really, I'm only playing with these three flutes, and that's all I'm using so far. Plans are that at some point I'll also get a 1.6 flute, because you need that to play certain sankyoku pieces. This has to do with the tuning of the koto, so you need a slightly higher instrument. And then maybe one day also a 2.0 or 2.1 flute, something like that. Just something in between the 1.8 and the 2.4. But that's really it. I doubt it will go beyond that for me. I'm very content with this. I'm still discovering new aspects of these instruments every day. So the journey is not over with these instruments, and I'm very happy with my very limited selection of instruments. One thing you might also find interesting are the prices of these instruments, because price obviously is a very important consideration when buying an instrument. So the 1.8 shakuhachi is 500,000 yen. The 2.4 shakuhachi is 600,000 yen. And the 2.7 shakuhachi is 700,000 yen. So you may see a pattern there. You might also find interesting that the quality of these instruments is pretty much as good as it gets. Of course, there are collector shakuhachi, Maybe there was a famous player who played a certain instrument and that's why it's very expensive, or it has nice ornamentations on it, or it is very old, and things like that may of course increase the price of instruments. But in terms of playability, so just from the musical perspective, this is about the top of the range for shakuhachi that you can get. It's still a lot cheaper than, say, a violin of comparable quality or a grand piano or things like that. So shakuhachi in comparison are not really that expensive. Okay, that's it for this video. My intention was not to show off, but really just to give you an impression of what I find useful to have as instruments for playing my repertoire and for daily practice. And that's really all I have to say about my own flutes. I hope you found this useful. As always, please leave a comment. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I'm still on my way to 1,000 subscribers, so please subscribe if you have not done that yet. And you can also ring the notification bell, something I've not mentioned so far. Then you will always be informed when I'm publishing a new video. That would be great as well. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.